Hi, and welcome back to the Gorton Law YouTube channel. My name is Jamie Gorton. I'm the lead attorney at Gorton Law, where we help businesses hire and retain world-class talent. We help families unite legally under the immigration laws, and we defend the rights of non-citizens who are having problems with immigration status, including facing deportation and removal. We're located just a few minutes north of Boston, Massachusetts, but we serve clients from around all 50 states and around the world. And we're hoping to give out a little bit of free advice that can save you from making some expensive mistakes. So if you're the person who needs to use the services of either USCIS or an immigration lawyer, this is the place to come. And today's stories are all about the question, how could they know? How could they find out, right? Because when you file an application with immigration, you have a little paragraph, an attestation, where you swear that everything is true and complete under pain and penalty of perjury. And when you make that signature, that's your warning that you have to tell the truth, even if it makes your job harder. There's just no good alternative. And anyone who has been an immigration lawyer for even just a little bit has had a moment where someone says something in a meeting and you just wish, oh, la, 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 why did you tell me that? Just like, can't you just go and tell and go see another lawyer and tell them everything you told me except that part, right? But it doesn't work like that, right? When you're in the middle of a problem, if you're in a hole, you have to stop digging the hole before you can climb out. And so I'd like to share with you 3 stories that I have over the last 9 years of immigration experience about how immigration found out, like how they wound up knowing more about the case than the lawyers did, and how they knew more than anyone wanted to let on. Because the power of the American government to find out information when they really want to find out about it is absolutely unparalleled. And I'll have 2 quick examples, and then I'll tell one story that will really emphasize the point of they will find out if they need to know. Before we go into our story time today, we always like to have our sponsor for each of our segments, and today's sponsor is fountain pens. I'm so excited that you're here today. I even wore my good fountain pen. And I have done the Reds pen before as a special sponsor, no offense to the red pen, but when you need to just treat yourself, when that signature is real special, bust out the fountain pen. Same technology since 1789. I made that up. Anyway, still happy to have you, though. Still always a good occasion to wear one of the nice pens. So the first story is about a husband and a wife who are trying to get their the husband's 2-year green card renewed. And this shouldn't be an issue because he is going to tell the lawyer that they live together and that they have the bank accounts together and that they've done everything together. And there's just one little problem. Yes, they have the bank accounts together. And yes, their record keeping isn't great. And maybe they should have been smarter about how they did their taxes, or maybe they should have really gotten the written lease from their family member instead of just having a very casual relationship. But what ultimately came down on this matter was that immigration read through the bank statements that this couple submitted. This was before they had any relationship with our office, by the way. But they submitted the bank statements, and immigration wrote back with a letter. And you can see our other video for what to do if you get a request for evidence on an I-751. But immigration sent a letter that said, well, even with all the evidence you sent, we saw your bank accounts and we noticed something. We noticed that you buy your coffee the same place every morning. And we noticed that it's also far away from where you say you're living with your wife. We noticed that it's pretty far away. And oh, by the way, we also noticed that it's the same city that your kid lives in. And it is the same city that your kid lives in with your ex. And we would like to know why that is. And this was such a small little detail. This was one tiny little flaw. But sure enough, the bank statements aren't lying. The gentleman is buying his coffee every morning. He's buying it about 40 minutes drive away from where he lives with his wife. And that's a very minute example, and we don't have to go into what happened for the rest of the story, because that just goes to show that immigration, when they need to, will take out the loop and they will look at these cases very closely. There's another very common example of how immigration gets more information than we think that they would otherwise get, and that we, normally I would tell a client, oh, we control the flow of the information. I've said this many, many times. We control the flow of information to immigration. And that's true, but there are some things that can be discovered that we can't control. The classic example, and this has happened to many people, not just once, is they sit down with immigration, and immigration goes through the interview, and they get to the point where they get each person to say that, yes, they're living together. And then all of a sudden they say, well, who's so-and-so? Who's Jack Smith? What do you mean, who's Jack Smith? Well, the problem, ma'am, is that you keep calling 911 on Jack Smith. And whenever the police show up, it's you and Jack Smith. And you keep telling the police that Jack Smith is your boyfriend. But you just told me today that you're living with your husband. What's the story there? So this is a classic example of people who think that immigration just won't find out. How could they possibly find out that I'm, not really living with her? She's off living with Jack Smith. How could they ever know? Well, they can find out. The third story I'll tell is very dramatic, and it's one that is not going to be something that involves everyone. As a matter of fact, it goes to show the power of the government at a very, very high level. But the story goes like this, is that we get a call from HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, because they would like to interview one of our clients, and it's we're not bringing our client into an immigration office for this. Why don't you come to us from the safety of our conference room, and we'll sit down, we'll meet with our client to see whatever it is that you would like to talk to them about. And the person did nothing wrong, don't worry. But what had happened was that they had entered the United States illegally, and they had done so by way of a boat. And the plan was that they were going to leave the country A, and they were going to go halfway out into the ocean. And then halfway into the ocean, they would meet up with the other boat, and the other boat would then take them to Florida. And they get on the boat, and it's them, the captain of the boat, and then the bad guys. Don't need to tell you where they're from, but it happens to be Russia. So they got the bad guys from the Russian mob. And then the bad guys from the Russian mob get the gun, and they say, there's been a change of plans. There is no other boat. This boat is going to go to Florida. And the captain said, no, it's not. And so they shot the captain and threw him overboard. The boat then goes to America with some very scared passengers on it. Now, Homeland Security Investigations gets involved because the captain of the boat was not fatally injured. He landed in the water and was able to swim with one good arm back to land, and was able to get the authorities involved from there. Now, HSI, who, again, this is the investigations arm of Homeland Security. These are very serious law enforcement professionals. Now they're interested in the bad Russians. Well, they sit down and they talk to my client about the story, but then out comes the laptop. Friends, they had video of everyone getting on the boat in the other country. They have video of people leaving the boat at the marina in Florida. And they have a map where license plate scanners tracked the bad guy's car from the marina to the hotel that they brought everyone to. And they have surveillance footage from that car driving along the way that they were able to find out because of the license plate scanners. You would not think that that is something that immigration would come into possession with in an average everyday case. As a matter of fact, it's not likely because Homeland Security Investigations is worried about international human trafficking and gangs and threats to Homeland's and national security, not everyday green card applications. And Homeland Security Investigations would not be interested in the person who buys the coffee in the wrong city or that the 911 calls are coming from the wrong address or anything like that. But it just goes to show that you should not ever count on immigration failing to make the connection. Immigration will find out that you were in the country and left and came back. Immigration will find out that you didn't answer correctly on your visa application about whether or not you were married when you got the visa. Immigration will find out if you didn't really work at that company. Immigration will find out if you really shouldn't have gotten that visa that brought you into the country in the first place. You cannot rely on the idea that USCIS will not notice the problems in your case and the problems that are in your case history. What you do need to do is to be honest with your attorneys, because your attorneys have probably seen worse and they probably have a good strategy for how to confront this issue. And if there is no good strategy, then an honest attorney will tell you that and tell you that it's better to just sit down. I like to tell a story of how I've only ever had one green card denied, ever, so far. Past performance does not guarantee future results. But we had a case where it was mother and daughter, and they went into the interview, and there was a problem with a late registered birth certificate. This is, again, no one in the world worries about late registered birth certificates except immigration officers and immigration attorneys. And they saw that, and, policies are policies. They said, you can get us the DNA test, right? And the daughter looked me in the eye and said, yes, we will get you the DNA test. Not a problem. Okay. The next day, the mom calls and says, well, if by daughter you mean I gave birth to her, then no, not my daughter. But if by mother you mean I adopted her when she was an orphan in the war, but there's no court paperwork and someone had to take care of this little girl, then yes, of course I'm her mother. And unfortunately, I had to ask, what are you doing? This was very early on in my career. Maybe I was a little too trusting, but the woman said, we talked to 4 other lawyers before we talked to you, and we told them the truth. And they all told us that there was nothing that we could do. So we decided they would go to the next lawyer and we would not tell the truth. Obviously, they did not get a green card. And you do that to an immigration lawyer. The immigration lawyer says, this is your funeral. I have to withdraw from the case. Ethically, I cannot do this anymore. Thanks for playing. Good luck. Let me know if you need anything in the future. Case is closed from my perspective. And it's a very dangerous game to play because oftentimes when an I-485 green card application gets denied, the denial triggers a decision by immigration as to whether or not the case has to go into deportation if the person is not in the country legally. So you cannot try to hide. You cannot try to sweep information under the rug. The only thing that will really put your case on the best footing is to tell the truth. And that is to tell the truth to your attorney, to the immigration officer, and with good, high-quality evidence at every step in between. As the good book says, the truth shall set you free. So those are 3 quick stories about how immigration can find out more information than you wanted them to find out about. And if you have concerns about what's on your file, reach out to an immigration attorney. Have them request a copy of your immigration file. Have them review it and take a look to see what's there. They may not be able to get the entire file. There may be things that are redacted or held back, but what does get turned over will usually be able to point the attorney in the correct direction. And that is oftentimes the first and most important part of any immigration case. So please bear that in mind. Yes, you control the flow of immigration information to the agency, but if they want to find out, I promise you, they will. This is Jamie Gorton from Gorton Law in Malden. Visit us at gorton.law, like and subscribe on YouTube. It means the world to us when you do, and we'll continue to give out some good advice for you to bear in mind as you go through your immigration process. And like today, we'll share a couple of stories from the trenches along the way. Thanks for joining.